Dragon's Rising has brought back quite the number of characters over the past few years, ranging from important ones like Jay and Master Wu to even Dareth. But there's still one character, one which arguably belongs in the main lineup of characters, one which the series had created a clear chance to introduce back into the story, but then follow through with, and one as important as Master Wu, that of course being Garmadon. Garmadon is one of Ninjago's main characters, and I'm sure none of you need any introduction to him. He is the son of the first Ninjutsu Master, one of the two sons of the first Ninjutsu Master, of course, and the father of the Green Ninja, the Elemental Master of Life, Lloyd Garmadon. But one issue that does come up with when talking about Garmadon is that we're now in the clear back half of Dragon's Rising. It's pretty clear that the series is building up to a conclusion at this point in time, with absolutely none or negligible mention of him. This, of course, is a matter of concern once you consider that it is highly speculated that Dragon's Rising will be meeting its conclusion next year, 2027, with Season 5. That leaves only about 30 episodes to reintroduce Garmadon back into the story, which I doubt Season 4 Part 2 will put any focus to, because he's not even been in any of the sets or mentioned in Part 1 even once. Season 5 also would probably be a 50-50, since they'd probably be building up to the finale and not introducing other characters back into the story at that point in time. It's no shock that he's one of the most important characters to the show, considering his ties to the history of both Ninjago and the merged lands. Shadowspin, which we'll be talking about in some time, those comics, of course, create a tie with Garmadon and the merged lands, the Forbidden Five, but also he's just always played an important role into the series. Of course, the Green Ninja prophecy depends entirely on him, and even just considering how Season 4 Part 1 went so back into the Ninjago lore, talking about even the Green Ninja philosophy and the prophecy over that entire spiel in 2026, it surely shouldn't be, too much of a further statement for Garmadon to definitely still remain relevant to the story nowadays. Considering that Season 3 Part 1 finally took the guts to mention the Oni back in Ninjago, which is something that Dragon's Rising has generally just kind of avoided for some reason, one would assume that Garmadon wouldn't be too far off, as I've said before, as his last arc was just about embracing his Oni side along with his human side and crystallized. But the problem with that is that also raises the question, does Garmadon even need to be back for the story? Probably not, and it's less likely than ever at this point. Garmadon's arc generally seemed to be complete by the end of Crystallized. That season handled a lot, and I mean a lot of things horribly, but the one thing it did well was Garmadon's arc. So he wouldn't need to be back necessarily for his own character arc anymore anyway. That of course doesn't mean he is not important to the story, because he still holds a very deep connection to a lot of the main characters, but just for himself, he wouldn't need to be back anymore. And considering he hasn't even been mentioned yet, and unlike Wu, who still hasn't been explained or actually been found, he isn't even seen in flashbacks. The only real mention of him has been through the Shadowspin comic series, which began release back in 2024. Even that one has just gotten hit with so many delays, and it even got cancelled at one point, so there's no idea what that series amounted to anyway. That, though, along with Eagle's mention of a former human student whom he despised in Season 2 Part 1, had made it likely that Garmadon would be back at least in some capacity for the show, even just as a mention. With the link to the Forbidden Five and Shadowspin, even a mention or cameo in Season 3 could have been a possibility, but as we stay far from there, as that entire story has just been wrapped up at this point, I believe it's time to say goodbye to the possibility of Garmadon returning in Dragon's Rising, which is certainly a disappointment. But what are you guys' thoughts on this? Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I'll see you all in the comments down below. Just help out about here. But yeah, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Let's do all that fun stuff. I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.